Wszystko zaczęło się od króla Jagiełły. Mała Łodzia stała się miastem, które w XIX wieku rozwijało się najszybciej na świecie. W ciągu zaledwie 60 lat od powstania pierwszej manufaktury powstaje przemysłowa, wielonarodowościowa metropolia. Jednak wiatry historii nie zawsze jej sprzyjały. To, co zniszczył los, odbudowują łodzianie. Nasza Łódź. Miasto wielkich szans. Od 600 lat w sercu Polski i Europy.
Jesteśmy Polakami. Jesteśmy niezwykłym społeczeństwem. Zawsze w obliczu wielkiego wyzwania potrafimy się mobilizować. Potrafimy stawić czoła wielkim wyzwaniom. Bo nie potrafimy stać obojętnie. Bo obchodzi nas bezpieczeństwo i przyszłość naszych dzieci. Bo wierzymy, że nadzieja zwycięża apatię, lęk i strach. Bo mimo wszelkich przeciwności nigdy się nie poddajemy. Potrafimy ciężko pracować, wspierać się i działać razem. Bo zależy nam na naszej ojczyźnie, naszym osiedlu, naszej ulicy. Bo chcemy naszych niezbywalnych praw i wolności. Bo nie oddamy naszych marzeń. Nadchodzi punkt zwrotny.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to welcome all the guests who have arrived here in such numbers. Also, best greetings to those watching us online. My name is Adam Mazur. I shall host this discussion on critical art. Before I introduce our guest, I would like to thank Leszek Jażdżewski for inviting us. I believe it's a great opportunity to meet here in Łódź and talk about art, culture, but also its condition and the status of the world. It's the beginning of our cooperation with InLots 21 institution. I've been heading for a year. I'm also a man of Łódź now, and I'm happy to say that Łódź somehow is represented also by Katarzyna Kozyra, a professor at the Academy of Fine Arts, Paweł Althamer, a sculptor who lives near Warsaw in Wesoła, Artur Żmijewski, visual artist, filmmaker from Warsaw, and Dorota Nieznalska, a performer a sculptor from Gdańsk. Well, this introduction is a bit forced. I trust you all will know those renowned artists. I'm proud that I've managed to collect such a team for this very discussion. I also was thinking how to take the topic invented by Leszek Jażdżewski and artists involved in social involvement, political involvement, critical status of the art are very much in place. It's also an unusual meeting for those who have known each other for decades, and we meet after so many years. We met during our studies or during exhibition that defined the contemporary art in Poland. My task is a bit difficult because we've started the discussion before this meeting while we were traveling to Łódź here. But let me begin by asking you to introduce yourselves. Paweł, who are you? Where are you as an artist now, as a man, as a human? So locate yourselves in your artistic trajectory. Please use the microphone. Good afternoon. It's a pretty happy moment for me. I'm sitting in a very central place before a great audience whose questions are unknown to me. When I was coming here, I cherished this unawareness of what's expecting me. but I felt it would be something about history. We are here with my colleagues from Kowalnia or friendly sculpting trends, sculptors, artists who have long accompanied me in my adventure, and I'm very much inspired to continue my studies, to deal what inspires me myself primarily in such a great company, to ask the same questions in public. For instance, why I produce sculptures, paint pictures, share it freely. At one moment, it turned out that the self-going practices became, at one moment, a discovery that I was found as an artist because I simply deal with what interests me, and then a separate artist who also deals with other things and I can say from this very place that I followed natural causes. So the context of this critical situation, critical meaning it's at the very edge, that people go through crisis, they don't know how to express themselves, they feel fear, and fear is what drives critical conditions. I'll try to control my fear. It's not my challenge in art, it's not inspiration for me. I have it somewhere, but I rather focus on what I want to do, something beautiful, a sculpture, I paint a picture, I dance, write a poem. I simply sit in a park and observe beautifully. And these things are a pretty effective method in working with the world, I'd say. When we were driving, you told Fabio you are interested in vanishing. You were very much present on the Polish and international stage of art, and now you are not that much interested in it. Well, contradiction comes here. Sometimes we do think against expectations. People expect you to come at 8 o'clock to school, take out your book and go past curriculum, and you prefer to go to the forest to observe butterflies. That's why this deed of will to vanish. It would be funny if I do it now. I once managed to vanish. I told Kasia about the side effect, which is I was so much sunk in admiring nature and the world that I vanished. I discovered that my body was not where it was any longer, and the world was filled with light, and I was in the middle of the light, and I felt great. Katarzyna, you run a Katarzyna Kozyra Foundation. You are an academic lecturer, a professor with the Academy of Fine Arts in Łódź, an active performing artist. Where are you? What are you doing? What your art is like? Apart from what you've enumerated, I'm overfed with the round of exhibitions, performances. Contrary to the situation that we have, not just regionally, but generally in the world. And as I said, or as I showed during my recent performance, that was actually a celebration of my 60th birthday. I asked a hypnotizer to help me get into sort of dreamy hibernation, which didn't mean I did not participate in the fun I arranged because of my birthday. I slept at the party. Lots of things were happening around me, cakes, discussion, music. What was it? A withdrawal gesture? It was a gesture of withdrawal, tiredness. I just wanted to relax, and I succeeded. And you're now open to new experiences? Yes. I'm always open to new experiences. And I expect so. I expect them to come. Artur, if you could please take the floor. When you talk, you are pretty critical to what's happening in art. You try to react, but that doesn't always translate to the program of institutions or how it is presented. Where are you now? How do you exist? What matters for you? Well, for some times I've been dealing with photography, less film, some sculpture. Yesterday I had a very nice moment that together with Paweł in Kalisz we unveiled the Gaia sculpture, Gaia in feathers. I'd say a classic bronze sculpture. I'm not withdrawing. I would say I was withdrawn. The world is losing interest in me, in what I have to say. It's been going on for years. Especially Poland is hardly interested. I'm not complaining. It's like boredom, shifting attention to different things. We are being replaced by further generations that have different rates, fight for different things. The things we participated in belong to the past already. That somehow goes hand in hand with the sensation that one day the political art was of interest to me. I thought it could arrange a lot of things. Then I noted that art cannot do many things. It would be rather institutions that have true authority, true power, access to media, to the public, can join different political processes, strengthen, weaken, or act against them, put some actors to the stage. They can easily remove actors therefrom. I mean here the institutions of culture. But I had this feeling that I paid my bill of political part. I closed that, and I could focus what art is in its essence, practicing extreme individualism, and this is what I deal with. I've been dealing with recently for a couple of years, and the circumstances support it. So I'm not very critical against what's happening in the art institutions. But I believe if I'm critical, my criticism is grounded. I could provide arguments behind my critical attitude or what I believe as a possible critic. Dorota, if you were supposed to describe your condition, as I didn't travel with you in one car, neither did Artur. We came here with Kaśka. I define myself as a Gdańsk person. I take many topics related to the city, being its part, but in the perspective of my future exhibition to be opened soon, it's very highly connected to the history of Gdańsk. But in my actions, I deal with situations related to different historic matters, and it gives me great satisfaction because I've discovered deep inside a need to learn about things I've never heard about before, getting through archives, institutions which have some knowledge to which you need to get. And my projects, which I've been running recently, get strongly in research, but they are also time-consuming, so they are not good for the media. They are not finally a project that will be media-like. It's rather more to focus, concentrate, think over some issues or historic context. But how I can define myself? A sculptor, a person who deals with photography. Sometimes I shoot a film. Well, the definition means more relation to what you used to do, because your biography is split into two things: the process and what you do after the process. That is the research work that is also presented in galleries, museums, but that is sort of a different creation. So if you could tell if it's about the change that's been imposed onto you, is it a pressure on what you can do? Well, absolutely, nobody never imposed me. It's my free will, my decision. As I told you, I find pleasure in this, because I've always thought how you show something is a form of responsibility for the shape, the topic, the idea, and what I show should be worked over, meaning I make a thing which is the essence of a topic. These can be different works. I've completed a number of different projects, but I always try to work out the topic to the very end. It's highly mobilizing, but it requires labor discipline. I like this term, which is unpopular in my milieu, and I impose it to myself as an artist.
Thank you very much. And let me start with you, Artur, because what you said is not necessarily true when it comes to your galloping individualism. Because you started with yesterday's recollections when you opened a collective monument, so your work is set in collaboration with Paweł. Only recently have you had a number of educational activities? So were you interested in bringing up the artists? So it's important for you to work in group, to do workshops. The films that you do are also relational. Is this your answer to what is happening? to go to smaller size collaborations, microworks and similar. I don't run workshops. The recent serious workshops that I ran were called How to Teach Art, and they finished with a book on how to teach art. Well, there is the whole theory of art teaching. It's a collective theory with the PhD students and the team of a number of PhD students from Zurich University and Zurich University of Technology and Fine Arts Academy. It was international milieus from countries of the world. We met 3 times a week, a week for over a year. So we created something that is useful. A lot of discipline observed. These were the latest workshops. But they brought people together. I don't teach. I'm not an arts teacher. I don't run workshops. I work with Paweł. We often meet and work together. And the sculpture that we delivered at the request of Kalisz, it was a park monument. We did it together. But it's of special character because I respond to my own questions, to carry out my own tasks. Just like Dorota, I do it with great self-discipline. When I work with Paweł, I follow his demon. I follow what he dictates to me. I improvise. It's a pleasant feeling of being deprived of responsibility because it's a diluted responsibility for the result. It's kind of transferred to the other person, onto Paweł. And there's something I would hardly expect or come up with, wouldn't do. My head doesn't have to work, it's all off. There is the ratio, that there is and there is not. There is a sheer and pure flow that creates gripping things for me. Kaśka, now you, if I may request. There wasn't a question, but I can grab a microphone. If you could tell us about your works with younger generation, your experience of being an educator or a lady professor at the university. We said that everything is pessimistic, what we are saying about the collapse of the system, of being reserved, of young generations find it difficult to find in the domain of art. But it's knowledge transfer or experience transfer this or that way. And there is some hope that something happens in art, something better in the future. How do you treat this experience of yours with regards to university or when you work in Katarzyna Kozyra Foundation? Hello, can you hear me? I have different experiences when it comes to teaching. It depends on people, not only me. But despite this pretty bad situation and the fact that today's generation is kind of lost for different reasons, there's a new one appearing. They want to be consoled, but at the same time, what I find really suggestive is that no matter what happens, there is a pressure in many people to be an artist, to do things, to fight. From my experience, well, the youngest artist generations, those emerging artists, those that are entering the stage, have no stage to go up on. But they use limited resources at the utmost by those who want to do whatever happens. They are true artists. Lost generation, what do you mean by saying that? You know, no financing at all. There's never been. There is no money. The money is spent on things that have nothing to do with art and artism. And what else? What else were you saying? Why are they lost? Ah, yeah. There is no possibility. There are commercial places, that's obvious. But there is a strong selection of what will resonate, what will catch attention of collectioners. On the other hand, institutions have suffered a great change, and young people have no chance to put the best foot forward in institutions. So no room for experiments. There is room for experiments. They have had it during university. But now they are discouraged, or, as I'm saying, there are very few individuals who find a channel to air out their opinions. You work with young artists, and do you have the feeling that they have similar chances that you had as a student? No. It was a specific time that I was studying, and this time was earmarked for experimenting, because there were no rules set back then, and you had freedom in doing what surprised yourself and other people. And now it's a bit more difficult. But to answer the question you've asked, in this little text that you wrote, it is so. What's left after the critical art? There are artists that are still with us. It's important than all the isms and other things. But they are here. The question is, what do they do? Critical methods for education. The time that was called by you the ism time is now over. But I have no doubts that it will not return in this shape, because the global situation is different. It's not only about our regionalism. 1990s will not return. It will be different. And the freedom of art is the freedom of artists to choose the form and the time they believe to be the right one. What you're saying is very important, but I was not speaking about returning to 1990s, but about methods that were used when you were in Kowalnia or you started at Stajudas. Now, you are a person who is preparing postgraduate, post-PhD dissertation. So you are preparing the method how to educate an artist today, using the experience load that you gained at your university and later on, bearing in mind the change that happened. So is this a critical moment or resistance point in this education system you are a part of? I don't know. Education depends on the educator. Right. All of us come from the same source, kind of. And this is our ideas, our way, that are the resultant of Kowalski's ideas. This cannot be changed. Both Paweł and Artur and Dorota and me. Bearing in mind our possibilities and limitations, we've met these requirements. How would you describe your work with others, collectives, micro-collectives, your work with Artur? Paweł Althamer, ever since the university times, he's been working with Nowolipie and similar groups, the people suffering from multiple sclerosis. It's a part of your practice, so it's been well rooted. So how would you describe the change? What are these collective works for you? Is this the moment of resistance, a hope, or something else? We started speaking about education as I see it. Right. I agree with Kasia that we are a source of education. Anybody who does the teaching or who's got listeners around you, so you are a teacher this or that way. I have no preparation for taking care of the people who came at random from the blown away from their post. It was a fantastic impact into the situation. The joint area with Grzegorz finished. Welcome. You can practice now in the open field, in collective illusion called reality. And this is where my adventure started. And I learned that it's my task to sustain these people in good well-being. The agency, they can't walk, but they can spend time nicely talking. They might create some creations, but we are not chasing. This is not a sports competition. I try to deprive them of what was a threat for me, to be liked, to be better than other people. The return to the kindergarten that I had in the Academy of Fine Art was a saving one for the way I thought. The group was developing lightly and strongly, just like the kindergarten classes. I asked them to do things that they wanted. I told them that I disliked it, but it was a thing of their choice. If they wanted to carve ashtrays, well, they wanted it. It was autonomy that I put hard. Collaboration with Artur and many artists. Przemek Matecki, it's been happening recently. What is that for you? It's a higher level because my colleagues know what they like. They need no prod. They need no prod to create. They can do it. So we do it together, jointly, like good cooks meeting to prepare nice soup. Dorota, you were at university in Gdansk. Gdańsk has got a different tradition compared to what Kaśka mentioned. Grzegorz Kowalski School. What is contact with others for? How do you find it when you work with students? Contact with students was excellent because I discovered this pedagogical item, but the society was not right. The environment wasn't right. I aspired differently. I had a different imagination on what collaboration might be like. How can we collaborate with our partners? And it finished after 6 years. But I remember it well. These are good memories. I'm in touch with my previous students and people that I collaborated with. Speaking about critical art and kind of being in present day. Let me mention this example. I was invited for Freedom Gaze 4 years ago, not here, somewhere else. It was the moment when I came to Łódź from Lublin, on my way back from Lublin. And I mentioned what happened in Lublin, but there was no punchline. So let me tell you the story now. I was invited to Lublin as part of Open City Festival. And this festival was an international one. It was curated by Paweł Leszkowicz and Tomasz Kietliński, the two curators. They invited artists from Poland and from all corners of the world. All of them delivered their projects in the space of Lublin. The edition that I was a part of in 2019 pertained to hospitality, and I referred to lack of Jewish society in the space of Lublin. I referred to scientific books by Barbara Engelking, Dariusz Libionka, Jarosław Tryczyk, and Jan Grabowski, who wrote about pogroms on Jews and the homicide of Jewish society. It was inspiration from my installation that I put in the space where Jews used to live. And I'm speaking about it because it was important in the context of what happened. It was called Judenfreien installation, Stack 101. And there were wooden welcomers, traditional ones. And welcomer near Jedwabne inspired me to create 14 welcomers in the places that witnessed pogroms of Jews. Kielce, Radom, Kraków are spectacular examples. It was like a pile to be incinerated. It was thought-provoking because the organizers were afraid that somebody would set fire to this stack. It would make the news. But after finishing, we discovered a right-wing politician that works locally who had a media show with the use of these. He invited local television, so it was fast. I know the mechanism. It was like me working on Passion a dozen or so years ago, and he wanted to sue me because he believed it was anti-Polish, as the pedagogy of shame. And this right-wing politician was Przemysław Czarnek. And after a year, this politician was one of the ruling party officers. He became a minister. So he had a media show that he fueled. There was the president who kind of related to organizers who panicked, and as a matter of fact, I had to cope with this or that way, because I was threatened by the mayors of the towns that the welcomers related to. So it pertained to the court case that I might have had. Many people didn't see the installation. The only way was the media information, but this is the mechanism that I observed before.
So, the conclusion is that that brought Czarnek to power or not? I'm asking about education because that is a change in your practice, remarkable change. Or in the case of Paweł, it got more dynamic. The problem we are facing today about being present or absent, the condition of critical art, is the failed academization or rejection of you and Artur as academic teachers. I believe education is critical. Not just the method, this or the other. What comes out of it? Do you regret what you did? Absolutely not. I have another element in the context of fires like burning people like Radziejów or Jedwabne. There were no extraordinary events, but you sort of wrapped it up. Some journalists blame me for this ministerial post. For Mr. Czarnek, he gained through the media affairs, through the goal he reached at that time. Artur, if you could address this question. Critical art, well, if you speak of it as artistic practice, is it over or not? I don't know if it's going to come back or not. There used to be a division, critical attitude and its effect, that is critical art, which was the emanation and fulfillment of this critical stance. Critical art was beaten up severely. We are still being attacked by different individuals from among commentators or those who deal with art criticism. Anyway, they manage this area somehow. It dominates. It's an old idea that you should dominate so that our ideas predominate, marginalize the others. If it's the other way around, it's bad. And as far as critical art has been replaced by the market, it was simply sold as decoration that fills the space. For some time, critical attitude survived, as proven by the late Piotrowski, the short-term director of the National Museum in Warsaw, who wanted to institutionalize the critical attitude, implementing it into the National Gallery actions. The institutions of culture need to participate in political life, speak openly about politics, support political tendencies in the country, different fractions, views. It turned out it's pretty impossible, and he was quickly punished for that, dismissed soon after he died. Some people say it's a disaster of that project. It only accelerated its disappearance. And if this critical stance remained, and what you are saying is that these works come out of critical attitude, this critical attitude is now under attack. The fact that you have critical attitude to the reality, you are trying to articulate your opinion, sometimes drastic, radical, sometimes more centristic. Anyway, an opinion that has a political name, and this is the most difficult thing, to politically name what you are saying, what name it has. And if the right wing has no problems about it whatsoever, then people who are more liberal have an issue with it. And it seems to me that the situation of critical art or critical attitude is that same attitude to the world, the way how you describe the world, the will to depict it is attacked. It's the freedom, it's the liberty we talk about, that it seems to exist. I believe it doesn't exist. It's a target to attack. Perhaps not the artists, but activists working on the border are pretty beaten for that. Or directors like Agnieszka Holland, this recent example of hers, named a Nazi. It's attacking not an object, a film, and any item. It's attacking a person, attitude to the reality. So it seems to me it's pretty easy to break it. Thank you, Artur. I believe that freedom games are here to prevent it from breaking down so easily. The critical stance, the fight for freedom should... You wanted to add something? I think that critical attitudes of artists has been taken over by activism. Artists didn't lose, but activism is far more effective and interesting than what's happening in art. Now we can't close this discussion like that. Paweł, if you could take the floor and tell us what critical art is for you, but try to be positive, please, and use the microphone. No, I'm kidding. The fact that we are arguing, we are here, and we are a noble example of artists who are ready. They know the expression techniques. Our arguments are not rude. They are nice conversations of which you may create pieces of art, like the wonderful Gaia standing somewhere in the park. That is something I would find a work of artists, not activists. They may be created in your studios. They may... These would be two brains shut down just to spend a part of your life on interesting exchange of ideas. Exchange, not fight for dominating the other party. On removing our greatest value, that is autonomy. Artists who confront their autonomies to create projects are examples to follow, and this is how I see this very meeting of ours. We have 4.5 minutes granted to Q&A session. Time for you, ladies and gentlemen. We have the questions now. I can see all of you. I'm sorry for that. Thank you. Iwona Wyszogrodzka, my name is. I'm shaken by the situation from a couple of months ago when the Ujazdowski Palace presented a work by Wojciech Korkuć, the one withdrawn from the Lublin contest. When we create a law on freedom of expression and critical art, we create it for all of us, for ours and not ours. I had great problem to comment this. It was an awful poster presenting a negative of photograph where Putin is welcoming Tusk. They are placed in a skull. And it was a picture taken from some extreme right-wing paper. It was supposed to suggest that Putin and Tusk planned the Smolensk disaster. The point is, do you know, all of you, when you speak, that you should not prevent the expression of critical art, that it's two-blade sword, or as I should say, two-blade freedom. You are, aren't you? Next question. Question answer. Minister Gliński said in his morning talk with RMFFM that he allocates 1% of its annual budget to culture. So culture is a minor fraction. How much, in your opinion, the annual budget should be allocated to art, and which branches should be most urgently financed? It would be
okay if art
was on the first place and not some huge institutions taken over by non-professionals. Percentage? Well, I cannot say all for art because I wouldn't be able to live without other fields of culture, but it's true that there are branches that require more spending and less spending. I would certainly want to be financed as well.
So the difference between 1% and 1.5%, this is the question. We've got 1 minute 30 seconds for one question. Not a comment, but a question. We are going to go to Kalisz. Where is this sculpture? This municipal park. St. Joseph Square is where you go. It's pretty characteristic because the St. Joseph Church. There are lots of buses. Yes, there's St. Joseph Center. Past St. Joseph Church in the park, when you go in deep, when you go to the meadows, you pass by the kindergarten, stop by, because Gaia is there. I've got the mic. Thank you very much. Thank you, artists, for participation. Thank you. Sorry for shortening the comment. Artists are available after the meeting, after the transmission that has just finished.
Dzień dobry.
Dzień dobry. Pan Zbigniew Hołdys.
Zgadza się. Dla znajomych Zbyszek.
Serio? Zbyszek. Nadchodzące wybory są zbyt ważne, żeby zostawić je bez kontroli. Dołącz do obywatelskiej kontroli wyborów. Zróbmy wybory bez picu.
It's not always easy to recognize. It may look like this, or like this. It may be a burden, but it is a responsibility that we embrace nonetheless. But if it means this for one person and this for someone else, maybe it ultimately means being there for one another. It isn't handed to us, but we know where to find it. And how it feels, how it tastes, and what it sounds like when we finally have it. It means different things to different people, but for many, it means everything. And if we all fight for it, it will eventually bring us together.
Ihre Ausreise.
Jestem z zawodu lekarzem. Zajmowała się diagnostyką chorób nowotworowych.
W Białorusi zajmowałam się mikrobiologią i molekularną biologią.
Byłem nauczycielem szkoły podstawowej.
Naszym celem jest budowanie umiejętności, które są ważne na polskim rynku pracy.
Szybko nabierają takiej pewności siebie, bardzo szybko się uczą.
Wszystko możliwe, kiedy starasz się.
Każdy wybór ma swoje konsekwencje.
Dziś na kazaniu o takich jak ty mówili, że to morderczynie.
A wiesz, że ta, która ci pomogła, trafi za kraty?
Trzeba mieć sumienie.
Jak mogłaś to zrobić własnej matce?
Aborcja to najgorsza zbrodnia.
Gdybym ja podjęła taką decyzję, nie byłoby cię tutaj.
Organy państwa nie będą przyglądać się temu obojętnie.
Życie i zdrowie kobiety jest najważniejsze.
Stop kryminalizacji aborcji.
Kobieta decyduje.